Hello.
Hey guys. Friday is so lovely, isn't it? Friday. Don't you think Friday afternoon has its own special vibe?
Yes, usually not
every day.
Yes.
What, darling?
Saturday is usually a working day, but
Yeah. I don't know. I like Fridays, but I also like Mondays because it's the beginning of something.
Do you?
Oh, you're a very positive person. That's lovely.
So
no, I think most actors like Mondays because they know their agents in the office, and then on Fridays they know they're all going home. So it's all in reverse.
That is very true. Very true. Yeah, because actually we're not like other people, are we? We don't like the weekends we haven't heard from our agents. Then it's what's happening? So I know what you mean. But so the song I Don't Like Mondays, you didn't relate to then that.
Yes.
Yes, I know what you mean. Anyways, we've got a fantastic guest today who actually was on Britain's Got Talent as you were, Caddy. And he's going to tell us all about his experiences and what he's doing now. And it's the fabulous Nick Edwards. Hi, Nick.
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
How are you?
So we're just very excited about talking to you because there's so much to talk about. And obviously, we're going to start talking about your amazing appearance on Britain's Got Talent, which I'm sure you're completely exhausted about talking about. But tell us again how it all happened.
It was an absolute whirlwind. And even thinking back now, I mean, I haven't watched it in a while, actually, to be honest, purely because it makes me cry even watching it now. So if because I'm thinking back, it was such an emotional experience for me because I was kind of out of the game for so long, and to be brought into that scenario on such a big stage with my kids there was like even more emotional. So what you kind of see on the episode is exactly as it happened. But if I roll back the clock a little bit, my wife was contacted by one of the producers on the show a couple of months before, and they'd come across a video I posted on just my Facebook, and I'd hashtagged Dad Singer on my video. And they contacted my wife saying they're looking for some surprise acts for last year's show, and would I be interested in kind of getting involved? And my wife knew that confidence would be such a big thing for me, and I really just hadn't played in so long, and I think she knew it was going to be a hard struggle for me from that perspective, but she knew it was an opportunity that she couldn't really say no to. So they, between her and her sister, they lured me into London and made me think we were going to sit in the audience to see Britain's Got Talent, and we watched kind of 5 or 6 of the acts, and next minute my mum walks on stage with my 2 girls, and the rest is history. But yeah, it was all it happened very quickly. It was very emotional.
It's such a tearjerker to watch it. It's to anybody to watch it. It's it's amazing.
And it's absolutely real. I mean, look, it was orchestrated by the show, obviously, and there is the razzmatazz around the show. But what you see was a genuine surprise and worry. I mean, I was petrified up there, to be honest. The prospect of going up and singing scared me. So when I was standing there with a microphone and they were asking me who I was and what my background was, I had all sorts of stuff going around in my head, thinking, are they going to give me a backing track? It's going to be in the wrong key or whatever, all these things that come into your mind as a singer. And then they kind of ushered me off the stage, where I was met by Ant and Dec, and they gave me a little bit of an understanding of where I'd be going next. So I had 40 minutes to warm up, and a crazy experience for me.
Wow. And you've had 300 million views, haven't you?
Well, yeah. I mean, the Facebook post is about 325 million now. Yeah, it's some crazy numbers. Yeah, and it keeps getting shared. I mean, it has its peaks where I'll have probably a few days where a lot of people message me. I can see it's doing its rounds again, and then it quietens down a little bit. But it's one of those that I'm really proud of getting up and doing that from a personal perspective, because it was a big achievement for me. But then for my family and all of the other things that came into it, it gave me that kind of stepping stone that I needed to get back into what I love doing, which is the
You've
music.
got a very supportive, loving family, haven't you? It's just fantastic.
Yeah. And it's been amazing, and challenging as well, because I've now got my the kind of juice to want to go and do it a lot more, which means I'm kind of have less time, but you got to find the balance, right?
Yeah, of course. But what are you doing? You're doing something really exciting now, aren't you?
So I've just come back from Nashville, actually. We're putting together an independent documentary called Road to the Opry, which is essentially me following my dreams to play on the stage at the Grand Ole Opry, which is quite a big, it's quite big in country music in general. And although I'm not kind of quintessentially a country music singer, I have kind of taken little bits from all the music I grew up listening to, but one of my dreams is to play the Opry. And what's great about the Opry is that they can have more well-known acts, all the way down to kind of first performances from kind of unknown talents as well, that are making their way up. And it's a real dream of mine to perform on that kind of stage. So that for me is the top of the mountain for me.
Wow.
So yeah.
Because I know that, like all of us, you've had to do other jobs and to support your family. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, in the States, everyone washes dishes and all the rest of it. But there's a kind of a reluctance sometimes, isn't there? To do that, but you've done it, and now the rewards are that here you are, international superstar, and you can do it now, and know your family are also supportive, which isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, I mean, we had a really great experience this time, because I mean, what we want to do with the documentary is get a real grassroots kind of documentary starting from the very beginning, and I feel, and I still feel like that, maybe it's just something that's in me, that I always feel that I'm the at the bottom of the pile and very much at the start of my journey. But what everyone has seen is I'm the kind of dad from the couch. I've come from the couch suddenly to the show, and now suddenly I'm trying to make the most of the situation, and that couldn't be any further from the truth. But we went over to Nashville to do some recording for some tracks I'll put out later in the year. So we're trying to keep the flow of things fresh, and I'm writing so much and loving it, really loving writing new stuff. I went over to a place called Cash Cabin, which is on the land of Johnny Cash's son John Cash, and they've got a studio there which was originally built for Johnny Cash, and it was originally built for him to have his little when he wanted to get away from being a rock star and a superstar, he'd go over to this little wooden built hut, and it eventually became a place where he would write songs. He would spend time with the kids. He'd cook for John, who's the only son of Johnny Cash and June Carter. They spent a lot of time there. And eventually, it turned into a home studio. So we went over. We were lucky enough to go over and spend some time at the studio and talk about what we might, what we might do there in the future. And plans are to go back either later this year or early next year and do some recording. And one of the things that came up was, would I be open to writing songs with John Cash? And I was like, yeah. So for me, it's opening up some really great doors that I could never have imagined.
You must be pinching yourself.
We came up to the house, and it was Johnny used to live just over the road, but he bought this land to build his little sanctuary, if you like, and he got this gentleman to build this hut, which he built between 1978 and 1979. And again, he used it as his bit of his kind of sanctuary, if you like, or quiet place for many years before it became a studio. And I think Loretta Lynn recorded her last 110 records there at this little hut. So it really got, a wealth of talent has gone through that studio. So for me, we turned up, the gates were outside the front, and we had a scheduled time to meet. We got met by a gentleman called Trey Cool, who is the engineer who recorded the last 110 or thereabouts songs from Loretta Lynn, and anyone from George Jones to Loretta Lynn to Johnny Cash and June Carter themselves have recorded in this studio. So we walked around the estate, and they took us round what's quite a large estate, actually, a massive house that John Carter lives in with his son and his wife. The dogs were there, and it was a really strange experience. And they took us on a golf buggy cart around the estate, and it's massive. And I'm thinking, I've never seen anything like this before. So he took us around. He was telling all these stories about Johnny Cash and all of the stuff that kind of went on there, and they also gave us a kind of an exclusive listen to a new album that he's releasing. Obviously, he's dead now, but a lot of his he's got a lot of material that he recorded in this studio at various different places where they had just the guitars and his vocals. These are songs that he'd written and recorded himself, but never released. So what they've done is they've taken those songs, brought in other musicians to kind of pack out the songs, and probably 2 or 3 years ago, they released a similar album of unreleased material called Out Amongst the Stars, which is one of my favourite albums. But they gave us a kind of exclusive insight, and we heard some of the songs, unreleased songs, that they're going to be releasing at some point.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah,
amazing. Paddy's dying to ask you a question, actually.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, that was interesting what Natalie was saying about how it's such a whirlwind. You've packed a lot into 1 year, and how and I imagine you keep grounded because of your children, really. But the other question I had was really about stage fright, because you talk about nerves, and that first time you went on the British Talent stage, how do you deal with that? Because I know actors and musicians, it's something they have to learn to do, but you've had so little time to face it and deal with it. How do you deal with it?
Well, at the moment, not at all. I mean, I'm still very much kind of unrehearsed, if you like. So if we go back to the show, at that point, I hadn't played in public for 12 years because my son was kind of 11. So if you imagine as a teenager performing regularly and then just stopping, you lose a lot. I mean, you kind of, when you're younger, you have that extra layer of kind of extra protection that you can do whatever you want as a teenager. And when you're older, you do lose that, and you become I felt it myself. So not having the experience of playing live and then going into that type of thing was very scary. And I remember going up to behind the stage. They had a dressing room for me, and I almost prayed, really, because I was really worried about how it might go and how embarrassed I might be if it all went wrong, And I played the song over and over and over and over again, but I was worried that I was going to forget the lyrics. I was worried that I might mess up on the guitar. I did actually on one part, but you probably didn't notice it. And I was just so worried and concerned about that. But at that point, I had two options. I either go out and get my moment, or I back out. And I never, and for all of those years of really trying to push my music as a teenager and not really getting the opportunity, and then having to accept to myself that music wasn't going to happen for me, it wasn't an option to go out the back door and just forget it, and all the work that had gone into it from my families and my wife's side especially, I had to go through it. So I went on stage with a hell of a lot of worry and nerves. What did actually kill my nerves a little bit was that they had this backdrop that they push up and down to move on stuff on and off the stage. And just before I went on, there was a gymnastics sort of act, and they had to move quite a lot of stuff off the stage. So I had about 5 minutes where I stood at the back looking at the audience just to try and kill some of my nerves. And that did work to a certain degree. But then when someone says, right, 5 seconds, Nick, and you're up, then you get this sinking feeling, oh no, I've got to go on at this point. And anyone that's performed will know that, it can really push you to perform well, but it also can be the worst feeling to have. So then if I fast track to now, when I done the show, I had no material, because it was 12 years out. So I wasn't a performing act, and I'd finally got my moment on the stage. I was 12 years out, hadn't really, only picked up my guitar for brief moments over those 12 years. I had no material. So it's not as if I could come out and say, well, I've got an album that I can push now. I had nothing. So I've spent the last year just writing and recording, just to get to a point where I am now, where I'm now ready to go back out and perform, because I've now got a full live set to play with.
Wonderful.
And you've got nothing to lose now and everything to gain.
And insofar as the nerves, when I won't really know how the nerves will be until I start regularly gigging, but that's the plan from October onwards. Yeah, so we'll see. I'm just trying to take it. The nerves never change, right?
Yes, but you've gone and grabbed your moment, and you've spent that year doing the writing, and and I just think it's incredible. It's such an inspiring story, and I think because so many mothers know that you have a career, then you stop and you think, well, that's it, my life is over, I'll never do it again. But you do get your chance, and you've gone for it. So I think it's really exciting.
Yeah. Now though, you probably you will be spending less time with the family because you're going to be out on the road. So there's always an up and down side to everything, isn't there?
There is. I mean, I'm aware I need to strike that balance, and that might bring its challenges, I'm sure. But I think that if I really want to do this, as I do, I'm going to have to make some sacrifices. As a family, we're going to have to make some sacrifices. But I just need to make sure I find that balance.
I think when you follow your heart and your soul, it's food for the soul, is what you're doing.
Yeah,
and that's more important than anything. And the rest will fit into place. Believe me, I know that. And you've taken your moment and you've grabbed it, and you must feel completely differently about everything. And I'm sure, everything is going to be majorly successful, continued as it has been already.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky that these doors have just opened, and whilst I haven't come out of the show, with my meal ticket to the top straight away, I'm still having to earn my crust, and I'm still having to kind of, stay grounded and just try and see one small opportunity as just a movement forward, And sometimes, like with anything, there's been times throughout the last year and a half where I've thought, am I taking a step back? Am I taking a step forward? And then suddenly something comes out of, and surprises me. And I'm just trying to make sure that when all is said and done, I've given it my absolute all to pursue what's been a dream of mine since I was a kid. And that's what I'm trying to do.
And you're doing it, and it's brilliant, and it's so great to talk to you about it, because I think it also encourages people just never to give up, because things will always, if you keep going. I saw a lovely quote this morning, and it said, every writer is, a writer is a failed writer until they become a proper writer, if they keep going. And I think that's the same with everything. If you keep going, that's when you actually become the real thing. And that's what you've done. You're now a performer. And huge congratulations.
And on the subject,
huge congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the subject of family and children, what benefits children most is having parents who are creatively fulfilled and happy. And I think that is the most important thing, as Dee said.
Yeah,
So
I mean that's something I constantly remind myself actually, that even if I'm away from home, like the last week and a half I've been away from home, and I've really missed the kids and my wife, and I'm glad to be back. But at the same time, I want them to see that it's really important to pursue what you love, and
Yeah.
hopefully they get that out of it as well.
Yes.
But I mean, look, I'd be happy being a songwriter and other people perform my songs as equal as me performing my songs myself. I've a love for songwriting and a love for singing, and I've just got to keep taking those steps, keep moving forwards, and hope that it opens up a new door. That's all you can do, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and you're doing it brilliantly.
It's my brother's
Thank you.
birthday today. My brother was a musician. He had a band. He's a singer, and he did what you were doing, which was he gave it all up really to bring up the family and to get a job where he could support everybody. And I'm so sorry that he never actually got to pursue what he was absolutely brilliant at. But now he's got the shed at the end of the garden, which is now a recording studio. So in his own way, he still has to do it. It's all part of him. And it's food for the soul, isn't it? Music.
Well, yeah. I was watching a documentary yesterday about a gentleman called Jim Lauderdale. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's a songwriter. And he wrote a song. He's wrote loads of songs. He was in a band with Elvis Costello. He also wrote one of George Strait's biggest hits. And he was in Nashville. And he moved to California because he weren't getting his break in Nashville. And he still didn't get his kind of solo break, but he continued writing and writing and writing. And it wasn't until kind of 20, 30 years later where he's got this kind of this long list of songs that he's written that have been performed by people all over the world, that he's come to realize where his place was, which was to keep writing. And he never made it as a solo artist, but his songs, I think he's only had about 3 or 4 songs that have really hit the big time. But he was explaining in the documentary that this is just that one song that gave him the kind of gratification he needed, that he was a successful songwriter, or that he was a songwriter that should be doing what he's doing. So, I'm not necessarily looking for, the top of the tree. I'm quite a grounded person, and I'm just looking to pursue my dreams wherever it leads. And I think if you're that type of person, you're grounded. Then there isn't this expectation, or this crazy expectation, that you're going to be the next Ed Sheeran. I think, like, for me, I'm just happy writing and singing, and feel incredibly lucky that it continues opening doors. And even if it stops opening doors, I'll still do it. Anyway.
You lovely voice, really.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And listen, you've already made it. You're in front of 320 million people.
Yeah. I keep telling myself that.
Yeah. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard to realize that. So you've done it already. So it's now just to relax into it and just to carry on.
Just keep going. Just keep moving forward.
Keep going. And you are a role model to your own kids, obviously, but to many others as well, people all over the world. And well done.
Yeah. I mean, I've had so many messages from people, especially when the show was on, and people who watched the video. And I've had some really heartfelt messages from people who are in war, missing their children, with a really heartfelt, message. I've had a few of those now, and it continues to really shock me, really, how important music is for people and how much of an impact it can have on people. And it does for me, but I always assume that it doesn't. Sometimes music doesn't impact, I assume that it doesn't impact everybody. But I think music is such a powerful thing, really. And I've seen it through doing the show and having the feedback I've had. It still gets me now.
Caddy, tell Nick about your family. I think this will fascinate you, Nick.
Yeah, so my family are all in classical music. So I've got 7 children who are all classical musicians, and we've got a link to Britain's Got Talent as well, because they all went on Britain's Got Talent in 2015 and
Oh
went
wow.
into the and it's such a strange, surreal experience, which is why I'm kind of connecting a lot with what you're saying, that
Mm.
suddenly you're on stage in front of millions of people, and then you've got to then carry on with your life after that, whatever it throws at you. And
Mm.
and I think it changes your life a lot, but then you also have to live with the fact that you're still seeing people. So that must be quite difficult to balance. And I mean, you're suddenly in front of thousands, millions of people, and then
Yeah.
go back to school the next day. Very
Yeah,
strange thing.
honestly speaking, you know, the show has been great in lots of different ways, but it's also kind of had its darker side as well in a way, because you kind of get this, it's like getting this, you know, this ticket, this meal ticket that says, come on the show and be amazing and be big, and everyone's going to love it. And then you get the reception that you do and you think, wow, I've cracked it. I've cracked it, you know, and that's the naivety of going into a show like this, and the naivety that you naturally have because you have dreams and aspirations, and suddenly you see it happening before your eyes. And one thing I've found is that actually I've had more kind of personal challenges to overcome in myself since the show than I've ever had. So it actually has two ends of the scale. So I think with all the extreme highs, it has had some quite challenging lows as well.
Well, instant exposure like that, it's nobody can prepare you for what that must do to you.
No, well, everyone keeps on the show. The judges especially kept saying, well, they've heard you now, you know, and as if, you know, but the problem is you don't just come out the show and you suddenly life is made for you. It doesn't happen like that. You come out of the show and you have to earn your key constantly. You have to constantly earn your place. So that has been really challenging, you know, for me, really, because it's almost like I've had to also accept that whilst I've had this big high, you know, you unless you're stringing out you know, a long list of hits that are hitting #1 every 2-3 weeks, or you're the Ed Sheerans of the world, you have to continue grinding and continue finding your place, you know. Which is why I think it's really important for me to keep grounded and just say, you know, it was a great experience for me, and an amazing thing to happen for me and my family. But just being able to play and write and go to these places, see these people and meet these people and keep seeing the doors open, even if it's a small door, should be enough for me. And that's what I try and keep telling myself, just a small door is enough.
And the fact that you've got a life and you've got a family will save you, because I saw so many casualties on that show who really thought they were young, they thought this was it, and then they crashed. And I think that's, you know, you're in a much better position.
Yeah, I mean, without mentioning names, I know one person specifically who told me that it was really challenging since he went on another show that was, I think, a BBC show, and he ended up nearly getting divorced from his wife because of, you know, all of the pressure that it all brought. And I can see that you become, you know, it's very easy to become blindsided by anything else when you suddenly get this music back and you go, right, nothing else important. But what is important is your family first. And you've really got to decide very quickly what is the important part, what's important and what's not important. You know, what would be nice and what is important, right? So that's something that I challenge myself on every day, and I'm not perfect. You know, like I went away recently for just over a week and a half, and as a parent going away for a week and a half, you feel guilty every day. You wake up, you feel guilty. You go, you know, you go out and have lunch. I'll go out and have a beer or two in the evening. You know, you feel guilty because you're not at home with the kids, and that's just a natural thing that I think parents just, you know, get. But you have to very quickly establish what the priorities are, or you can very quickly become blindsided by the idea, the grand idea of being famous and making it and whatever you want to do, and lose sight of what is really important. So I do try and keep myself well grounded, you know,
that is such great advice for everybody who's ever been through something like this, or who's ever going to go through something like this, that you do sound like a very, very grounded person. But oh goodness, we also wish you all the luck.
You and Caddy goes out on the road constantly with her children, don't you, Caddy, and her husband, all playing wonderful music in great places. And where are you soon, Caddy?
Oh, it's the proms. It's the BBC proms next.
Oh,
but I
wow.
think the key, like what you've done is you stay true to what you creatively want to do. You do the music you want to play. Don't let anyone tell you to do what you don't want to do, and stay true to that. And I think that's where the joy is. And that seems to be exactly what you're doing. It's a fabulous thing.
But Caddy, I asked you recently, you went somewhere wonderful and glamorous. It was Antigua, wasn't it? And then I said to you, oh, that must have been amazing. And then what I actually got was the picture of you having to go into the dressing room, make sure that you'd picked up everything that everybody left behind, and carrying all sorts of instruments that it just was wow.
It's all glamour. It's all glamour, right?
Oh yeah,
it
really is. Darling, it's so lovely to have you on the show. We'd love to see you again.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Wish you all the luck.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
And good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh,
wow.
Interesting. Really interesting perspective. I think on that
is, isn't it? Because
it's
actually,
so realistic and so real, you know, just
it is.
Talk about having your head screwed on. It's incredible. I mean, it's very hard work. Everybody thinks this instant fame is easy. It's not easy. It's a whole load of things that you've never had to negotiate in your life. Suddenly, all at once.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Caddy, you've done incredibly well because of your talents, obviously. But you've actually kept everyone grounded, haven't you? You and your husband.
Yes, well, I think it's because with 7 children, you sort of have to be. You can't get tilted into a false idea of who you are and what's needed. And I think it was interesting listening to him, because I thought, well, he understands that completely, that you'll get thrust into fame, but you can't let your head go into the wrong place. You have to remember who you are.
Exactly. Absolutely. And I think, you know, as we said, he's a great role model, as you are, and Nat. And hopefully me. But anyway, I hope really, you know, that really has helped people, you know, who are heading in that direction, to know what to watch out for. And I think, you know, there should be counselling after a major sort of event like that, don't you?
I think so, absolutely.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
It really does impact on people's mental health. But on a higher note, darlings, the weekend is coming. And so lovely to see you, and see you
too.
Thank you, darling. Thank you.
And we miss Debbie, but she'll be back soon.
Yes, she will. Yes. Lots. I'll tell her actually how much we missed her, as I'm sure you guys will.
I'm sure she'll be asking, did you miss me?
I know. She is. All right, darling.
Don't miss her.
See you next week.
All right. See you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Right. This is Ian. Say hi.
Hiya.
Say hi, Wonderbirds.
Hi, Wonderbirds.
Oh, don't you just love it?
Yeah.
I am in, where am I, Glasgow?
Glasgow to Marriott Hotel, Glasgow.
And we are just about to go to the set.
Yeah, on the road.
He's looking after me. He let me have some breakfast this morning, thank goodness. And this is me completely unmade up, so how gorgeous is that?
Oh, lovely.
He's just lovely. It's just lovely. See you soon.